Welcome to Stories Junction. Let's begin today's story. My name is Julian, and I've learned that life doesn't hand you second chances for the moments that matter most. They come, they go, and if you miss them, they're gone forever. I decided to propose to my girlfriend, Amara, one evening after 2 years together. Things hadn't been flawless lately, but I was convinced she was my future. When I say I loved her, I don't mean it lightly. I built my world around her. Sacrifices, dreams, plans. Proposing wasn't just a question, it was about giving her a moment as meaningful as the life I wanted to share with her. Early in our relationship, Amara once laughed during a casual chat, saying she'd never accept a cheap ring from someone who claimed to love her and wanted to provide. Everyone chuckled, including me, but her words burrowed into my mind. The more I thought about it, the more it felt true. How could I say I wanted forever with her and not make that moment special? A ring wasn't just jewelry. It was a symbol of commitment. So I got to work. I had a job at a growing marketing firm in Seattle. It wasn't a fortune, but it kept me comfortable. I had bills, responsibilities, but I started saving. Every paycheck, I set aside a portion, skipping concerts, new gadgets, anything I could cut. For 6 months, I lived lean, building up enough for a ring I thought she'd cherish. I found a stunning lab-grown diamond. Honestly, I couldn't tell the difference, and what mattered was my intention. I kept picturing her face when I'd open the box, her eyes lighting up, calling her my fiancée. That proposal wasn't just a step. It was the moment, one I wanted her to carry forever. But I should have noticed the cracks forming. For a month, maybe 2, things between us fell off. It wasn't one big fight, just a quiet drift, like we were speaking different languages. We used to spend every weekend together, but that faded. Amara was suddenly too busy, too exhausted, too distant. At first, I brushed it off as work stress or life's chaos. But as it lingered, I wondered if I'd messed up, if I wasn't enough. Then, about 2 months ago, after one of her friends got married, things clicked into place. Amara went to the bridal shower and wedding, coming back with stories and photos. At first, it seemed like she was just excited for her friend, but soon her comments shifted. She'd mentioned how her friend's fiancé planned a grand proposal or how another couple was already planning their future. Her remarks grew pointed. "She's the only one not engaged in our group," or little jabs about men who aren't ready to commit. It felt like I was being weighed against others who'd already proposed with lavish gestures or bigger rings. Despite the warning signs, I clung to hope. Maybe she was distant because she doubted our future, and a proposal would fix it. I thought the ring could bridge the gap between where we were and where we'd been. Deep down, I knew it was a gamble, but I pushed forward. I chose her favorite spot, a quaint bistro in Capitol Hill she adored. I asked her to dinner there, and when she agreed, it sparked a flicker of optimism. Maybe she was waiting for this, too. I kept it secret. No friends, no family, not even my closest buddy knew. I wanted it to be just us, no spectacle, no crowd. This was about her, not the world. I didn't rehearse my words. I trusted they'd come when the moment did. That night, she arrived looking radiant as always. We ate, laughed, and for the first time in weeks, the tension eased. It felt like us again. I didn't know if it was the familiar setting or if she was truly present, but I leaned into it. After dinner, I suggested a walk to a nearby garden, a serene spot with soft lights along the paths. She agreed, and my resolve grew. This was it. We strolled for a bit, the glow of the lights catching her eyes. Then I stopped, took a breath, reached into my jacket, and dropped to one knee. I looked up, heart pounding, and asked her to marry me, holding out the ring I'd poured everything into. She didn't smile. She froze, stepping back, like I'd thrown her into a spotlight she didn't want. I thought maybe she was just stunned, so I stayed there, vulnerable, waiting. But seconds stretched, each one heavier, my pulse deafening. Then she spoke, a soft no, so gentle it cut deeper than a shout. It wasn't confusion, it was clarity. She stepped back again, sealing her answer. I stood slowly, nodded, forced a tight smile to hide the wreckage inside. I turned and walked away, not looking back. A few strangers nearby had seen it, their silence loud with pity. I didn't care. My pride was in shards, my heart worse. I left the garden, back straight, but inside I was crumbling. When I got home that night, I shut the door and dropped my keys on the counter, the sound echoing in the quiet. My chest felt hollow, like someone had carved out everything that made me feel alive. I headed straight for the shower, hoping the water would drown out the noise in my head. I didn't bother adjusting the temperature, just stood there, letting it pour over me, trying to wash away the sting of Amara's rejection. My mind spun, replaying her step back, her soft no, the way her eyes avoided mine. I kept asking what I'd missed, what I'd done wrong. Nothing fit together. The more I thought, the more it felt like I was unraveling. I stayed in the shower until the water ran cold, then wrapped a towel around myself and collapsed onto my bed. I grabbed my phone, desperate for a sign, a text, a call, anything to say it was a mistake, that she'd panicked, that she didn't mean it. I imagined her messaging. "I'm bad with surprises, can we talk?" But the screen stayed blank. I must have checked it every 10 minutes until exhaustion pulled me under. The next morning was a Sunday, but it didn't feel like a day off. I woke up with a weight on my chest, like grief had pinned me to the bed. I didn't want to move, eat, or let light into the room. I just lay there, letting time slip by, meaningless. Around midday, my phone pinged. My heart leapt, but it wasn't Amara. It was her younger sister, Lila. She'd heard what happened from Amara and texted to say she was sorry for how it went down. She said it wasn't right, how her sister handled it, and offered to talk if I needed it. Her kindness caught me off guard, but I didn't reply. I appreciated it, truly, but I couldn't face anyone, not even someone being decent. I wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. It was like I was too broken to even let the pain out. Days passed in a fog. Then people started calling, friends I hadn't spoken to in months, even a cousin I barely saw. They all asked if I was okay, saying they'd heard about the proposal. I was floored. I hadn't told a soul. Not my best friend, not my family. I kept it private, wanting it to be just me and Amara. So how did everyone know? That's when it hit me. Amara had told them. She'd shared it with anyone who asked, saying, I turned him down. He proposed, and I said no. I couldn't fathom why she'd spread it like that. Was it to explain herself? To get sympathy? To make me look small? I had no answers, and that made it worse. What was private heartbreak became public humiliation. I didn't lash out, though I wanted to. I didn't post rants online or spill my side to anyone who'd listen. Not because I'm noble, I was furious, but because no words would undo the hurt. I just wanted to survive each day without falling apart. So I threw myself into work. My marketing firm was busy, and I started staying late, taking on extra projects, anything to keep my mind off her. I'd work until my eyes burned, go home, collapse, and do it again. But no matter how many hours I logged or tasks I checked off, the nights were brutal. The thought of Amara with someone else could gut me in seconds. I wasn't healing, I was running, and I knew it. Weeks dragged on like that, and I realized I couldn't even open up to my best friend, not fully. As a guy, admitting heartbreak feels like admitting weakness. You're supposed to shrug it off, act tough. But I wasn't just hurt. I was shattered, confused, losing pieces of myself. That's when I decided to try therapy. I didn't want a group or some trendy app. I found a retired counselor, a guy in his 60s who'd seen enough of life to get it. Talking to him was like letting out a breath I'd held for weeks. He didn't push cliches or fake positivity. He listened, and when he spoke, it cut through the noise. We dug into the proposal, the silence after, the shame of everyone knowing. He gave me tools, small mental exercises to stop the spiral, ways to redirect the pain so it didn't swallow me whole. For the first time since that night, I felt a flicker of control, like I was starting to stand on solid ground. Talking to the counselor started to shift something in me. It wasn't a quick fix. Grief doesn't just vanish, but I felt like I was clawing my way out of the fog. The exercises he gave me, like journaling my thoughts to interrupt the endless loop of what went wrong, helped me breathe easier. I wasn't fixed, but I was moving forward, one shaky step at a time. That's when I did something I hadn't planned. I reached out to Lila, Amara's younger sister. Her text from right after the proposal had stayed with me. She'd been kind, not out of obligation, but because she genuinely cared. I hadn't responded then, too raw, too closed off, but she'd checked in a few times since, sending short messages like, "Hope you're doing okay." I'd read them silently, never replying, until one day I felt ready. I texted her back, thanking her for her kindness and asking if she wanted to grab coffee. To my surprise, she said yes. We met at a small cafe in Fremont, a place with mismatched chairs and a warm vibe. Lila was easy to talk to, grounded in a way that felt rare. She didn't pry or bring up Amara unless I did. We talked about life, her job as a graphic designer, my work at the marketing firm, random stuff like Seattle's rainy winters. It wasn't forced or heavy. It was just nice. For the first time in weeks, I laughed without faking it. I left that coffee shop feeling lighter, like I'd remembered what it was to connect with someone without a cloud hanging over me. Lila and I started texting more, sometimes meeting up for a quick lunch or a walk. It wasn't romantic, not at all, just a friendship that felt like a lifeline. But I couldn't help wondering how someone so kind could be Amara's sister. They were so different. Amara was bold, always chasing the next big moment. Lila was steady, present, the kind of person who noticed when you were off without you saying a word. I didn't dwell on it too much, though. I was just grateful for her. Then things took a turn. Lila called me one evening, her voice tense. She said Amara had found out we'd been talking and lost it. Apparently, Amara called her, furious, telling her to stay away from me, saying it was wrong for us to be friends. I was stunned. Amara had rejected me, walked away without a backward glance. Why did she care who I talked to? Lila was just as confused, but said she told Amara to back off. We agreed it was ridiculous. We were adults, and Amara didn't get to dictate our lives. But that call stuck with me. Why was Amara so angry? It didn't add up. A few days later, Lila and I met up again, this time for a hike in a nearby park. As we walked, she opened up more. She hesitated at first, then told me something I hadn't known. Amara had left me for someone else. I didn't ask for details, and Lila didn't offer many, but she said the guy had been cheating on Amara, and their relationship crashed hard. It wasn't my pain to carry, but hearing it didn't make me feel better. No vindication, no I told you so. It just made me see Amara clearer. She'd been chasing something she thought was better, and it backfired. Lila said Amara's outburst about us probably came from guilt or regret. Maybe seeing me move on stung in a way she hadn't expected. I nodded, but inside, I felt a mix of pity and relief. Pity for her mess, relief that I'd dodged something toxic. Lila and I made a quiet pact. We wouldn't let Amara's drama stop us from being friends. It felt like a small act of defiance, but it meant something. Still, the whole thing left me uneasy. I kept up with therapy, working through the new layers of hurt this brought up. My counselor helped me see I wasn't just grieving the rejection, but the betrayal of trust. Amara sharing our private moment. Her moving on so fast. I started to feel stronger, but questions lingered. Was Amara's reaction just guilt, or was there more to it? And how would this friendship with Lila evolve under the shadow of her sister's anger? Life started to feel steadier, like I was finally finding my footing. Work kept me busy, therapy kept me grounded, and my friendship with Lila gave me something to look forward to. We'd text about random things, new coffee spots, her latest design project, my rant about Seattle traffic. It was simple, but it mattered. I wasn't rushing to label it or push for more. I was just glad to have someone who got me without expecting anything. Still, Amara's outburst about our friendship lingered in my mind, like a warning I couldn't fully shake. Then, out of nowhere, Amara reached out. It was a Tuesday evening, and I was scrolling through my phone when a message popped up from her. My stomach dropped. She wrote, "Hey, I'm really sorry for how things ended. I've been thinking about you. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen, my pulse picking up. Part of me wanted to ignore it, delete it, keep moving forward. But another part, the one still scarred from that night in the garden, wanted answers. Why now? What did she want? I didn't reply right away. I sat with it, letting the words churn in my head. A few hours later, another message came. "I know I hurt you, and I regret it. I'm in town tomorrow. Can I stop by? I can make that pasta you love." It felt like a trap, not out of malice, but out of familiarity. She was offering comfort, a memory of us at our best, like it could erase what she'd done. But I wasn't the same guy who'd gotten down on one knee. I worked too hard to rebuild myself to fall back in her orbit. I talked it over with my counselor the next day. He asked what I wanted from responding, if anything. I realized I didn't need closure from her. I needed to protect the peace I'd been clawing back. So I typed a reply, short and clear. I appreciate the apology, but I'm not interested in meeting. Please don't contact me again. I hit send, blocked her number, and exhaled. It wasn't about spite. It was about choosing myself. I didn't tell Lila about the messages. Our friendship was a bright spot, and I didn't want to drag Amara's shadow into it. Lila and I kept hanging out, grabbing takeout, watching bad sci-fi movies, or just walking around the city. She had this way of making heavy things feel lighter, like when she'd tease me for overanalyzing a plot hole in a movie instead of just enjoying it. I started to notice how much I valued her perspective, her quiet strength. I wasn't falling for her, not yet, but I could feel something shifting, like the ground was preparing for something new. Meanwhile, I heard bits and pieces about Amara through mutual friends, though I didn't ask. Apparently, she'd been venting to anyone who'd listen about how complicated her life was after her breakup with the guy she left me for. Some said she seemed lost, others said she was fishing for sympathy. I didn't care much either way. I was done letting her choices define how I felt. But one detail stuck. A friend mentioned Amara had been asking about me, casually at first, then more pointedly. It made me wonder if her texts were less about regret and more about control, like she couldn't stand the idea of me moving on. Therapy kept me anchored. My counselor and I worked on letting go of the need to understand Amara's motives. He said sometimes people act out of their own chaos, not because of you. It helped me see her rejection, her gossip, her sudden reappearance as her story, not mine. I started focusing on what I could control, my work, my health, my connections. I even reconnected with old friends, grabbing beers, or hitting a trail, rebuilding parts of myself I neglected. But the question of Lila loomed larger. Our friendship was solid, but I caught myself wondering what it could become. I wasn't ready to risk it by pushing for more, not after everything I'd been through. Yet every time we hung out, I felt a pull, a quiet possibility I couldn't ignore. Was I ready to open that door? And what would Amara do if she found out we were still close, despite her warnings? The days rolled on, and I settled into a rhythm that felt like mine again. Work was demanding, but fulfilling. Therapy kept me steady, and my friendship with Lila became a quiet anchor. We'd meet up for casual things, exploring new food trucks in Seattle, sharing playlists, or just talking over coffee about life's small wins and frustrations. Her presence was effortless, like she didn't need to try to make things better. She just did. I started to wonder if what I felt for her was more than gratitude, but I held back. After Amara, I wasn't ready to leap into anything that could disrupt the balance I'd fought for. One evening, Lila invited me to an art gallery opening where her designs were featured. Watching her move through the crowd, confident but humble, talking about her work with passion, hit me hard. She wasn't just kind, she was inspiring. On the walk home, under the glow of streetlights, I almost said something about how much she meant to me, but the words stuck. I didn't want to risk our friendship on a feeling I wasn't sure of yet. She seemed to sense my hesitation, giving me a warm smile before we parted ways. That night, I lay awake, wondering if I was ready to let something new grow or if I was still too scarred to try. Then Amara's shadow crept back. A mutual friend mentioned she'd been asking about me again, more insistently, even bringing up Lila. It felt like she was circling, unwilling to let me go fully. I brushed it off, but a week later, Lila called, her voice tight. Amara had confronted her again, this time in person, accusing her of betraying her by staying close to me. Lila stood her ground, telling Amara she had no right to control who she cared about, but the argument left her shaken. Hearing this, I felt a mix of anger and clarity. Amara's actions weren't about love or regret. They were about her inability to move on from the life she'd thrown away. Lila and I met the next day to talk it over. She admitted the fight with Amara hurt, not just because of the accusations, but because it forced her to confront how different they'd become. I shared more about my own journey, how Amara's rejection had broken me, how therapy helped me rebuild, how her kindness had been a light when I needed it most. For the first time, I hinted at what she meant to me, saying, "You've made this year bearable, maybe even good." She looked at me, eyes soft, and said, "You've done the same for me." We didn't push further, but the air felt charged, like we'd opened a door we couldn't close. I went back to therapy, unpacking the mess Amara's actions stirred up. My counselor helped me see her behavior as a reflection of her own unresolved pain, not a measure of my worth. He asked what I wanted moving forward, and I realized I was done letting Amara's chaos pull me back. I wanted to keep building my life, with work, with friends, with Lila, whatever that might become. I started setting boundaries, politely shutting down mutual friends who brought up Amara's drama, focusing instead on what brought me peace. Lila and I kept growing closer. We didn't rush to define it, but the moments piled up, a late-night talk about her dreams, her hand brushing mine during a movie, the way she'd check in after a rough day. I started to see a future, not forced or planned, but natural, like it could unfold if we let it. One day, over brunch, she laughed and said, "You know, we're pretty good together." I grinned, heart racing, and replied, "Yeah, we are." It wasn't a confession, but it was enough for now. Amara's final attempt came a month later. She sent a long email, since I'd blocked her number, pouring out apologies, saying she'd made mistakes, asking for a chance to explain. I read it once, felt the old ache, then deleted it. I didn't know her response. I'd chosen my path, and it didn't include her. I told Lila about the email, not to stir drama, but because I wanted to be honest. She nodded, unfazed, and said, "You're stronger than she'll ever know." That meant more than any apology ever could. I'm not saying I'm healed. Scars don't vanish. Amara's rejection changed me, made me cautious but also clearer about what I value. Lila's friendship, maybe something more someday, showed me that kindness and connection are rare, worth protecting. I'm not bitter, not broken. I'm just moving forward, surrounded by people who choose to walk with me. For the first time in a long time, I'm not just okay. I'm hopeful.